Hi, my name is Becky Jennings, and this is the Responsible Parenting Podcast. I give you the transformational tools to stop reacting to your children in the moment and start responding with intention.
When dealing with frustrating behavior, yelling can quickly become our default way of handling things. But since you're listening to this podcast, I know you're looking for a better way. That's why I created my free guide to help you get out of the yelling cycle. This 6-part free guide gives you the foundational information to start breaking the toxic yelling cycle. Click the link in my show notes to get your free guide today. This might be the hardest cycle to break as parents, but I have your back, and together we can change the way we respond.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Responsible Parenting. I'm your host, Becky Jennings, and I'm super excited to be here. We're talking boundaries and expectations today. And this actually came from a follower on Instagram, and they asked a question: how to manage my emotions when establishing time boundaries. So it was just a little question, but it gave me a lot to think about and go on. And when I was thinking about this, I was like, I don't think that time boundaries is what this person is having challenges around. I think the lines are kind of being blurred between an expectation that isn't being met and a boundary. So I want to dive in a little bit today and talk about the difference and then actually answer this question and get this follower some support and real-time actionable steps that you can implement today. So you probably find yourself in a similar situation to this listener, or excuse me, this follower, who might be experiencing the felt pressure under time crunches. That is very, very common in parenting, where we are feeling rushed. We have the morning, chaos. Then we have just a few hours once we pick them up from school, and we want to fill it with quality time, but we also have after school activities. We also have sports. We have dinner that has to happen. We need showers and bath time, and then we need bed, and we need them to go to sleep. And that's an area that we experience pushback and all the things. So it can feel very often that we are constantly getting pushback when we are under time crunches. So let's talk about what a boundary is. A boundary is actually something that we personally can enact, we can uphold, we can hold the line, right? It is a limit that we set, that we can personally control. So it's something we can enforce and follow through on. In this question, I believe we've blurred the lines a little bit between boundaries and expectations. It's actually fully appropriate as parents to have expectations of our children. And it's within those expectations that we can set boundaries and what we can enforce inside of that expectation. So let's go for instance, right? Let's talk about the morning rush, because a lot of parents come to me and say, my morning is unhinged. It's completely out of control. We end up fighting, we end up rushing, there's yelling. The only way to get the kids out the door is if this and this and this happens. And then I drop them off and we're screaming at each other, we're in a fight, and it just sets the whole day in a bad way. And I get that. It's super frustrating. So let's take and tackle the difference between expectations and boundaries, and how can we manage our emotions, which is what this person is asking. How can we manage our emotions when we receive that pushback inside of those expectations? So the expectation, let's say, is during the morning, we need to leave by 7:30. So our kids wake up. They refuse to eat what we've made them. They say that we have to make them something else, or else they'll be starving the whole day. They'll be so hungry. And because we're trying to be a good parent and we fear the crabbiness, the crankiness, the disruption that might happen in class if they go to school hungry. So we, in a stressed, panic way, we make a quick second breakfast just to make sure that they get out the door with a full belly. We see the clock ticking, ticking, ticking away. and then they won't get their shoes on, right? So we start bribing or we start threatening to get those shoes on, which is our invitation to our child to engage in a power struggle. And then the whole thing falls apart because they take the bait, they engage in the power struggle, and now we're yelling, we're totally overwhelmed, and we feel like crap because we failed the morning, right? Who can relate to this? I know I can. Here's a mindset shift that I think will be really powerful and really supportive in this. Even though we've created a boundary, right? We have this expectation. We can't expect our child to like it. And we can't be waiting for their buy in order to feel like this is an effective boundary, in order to feel like this is a good expectation. When we are constantly seeking our child's approval, our child's acceptance over the limit, the line, the boundary, the expectation, that is actually relinquishing our role as parent to the child. So, another shift in our brains. So we now understand that it's actually our job, our role as parents to set these expectations and to hold these boundaries. That's the mindset shift. Our children do not need to buy into this in order for it to be effective. Our children do not need to buy into this and accept the limit or the line or the expectation in order for me to feel good and in order for me to feel like I'm doing my job effectively. That's a huge mindset shift. The other one that we can switch right now in our head, which will hopefully help in that emotional grounding desire right now with this follower, one mindset shift to remember: we need to expect the pushback. Expect it. It's happening. It's always going to come our way. It's actually developmentally appropriate. It's normal for kids to want to have any control over their day. So we expect it. We notice it like clockwork, and we can almost laugh at how predictable it is. It's not personal, it's developmental. It's not personal, it's developmental. And it's totally, totally appropriate. Is it challenging? Absolutely. Is it frustrating? 100%. It's triggering. It's all the things, but it is actually biologically normal for our children to push back. That's how they learn who they are. That's how they learn what is allowed and what isn't. That's how they actually learn how to take care of their own selves. So, how do we, let's keep going with the morning. Let's break this down in how we can set clearer expectations and the boundaries that we can hold within those expectations. So we say to our child, we're actually going to start getting up at 6:30 in the morning because when we get up at 7, it is far too rushed. And there's really only 5 things that we need to accomplish to successfully get out the door on time. We need to get dressed, we need to eat our breakfast, brush our teeth, get our shoes on, get to the car. So, we're going to start getting up at 6:30, and if we can do this faster and faster, then we can change the time. But for right now, we're going to practice in this hour-long time frame. Okay, that's amazing, right? Are they going to accept it? No. Are they going to lovingly say, "You know what? You're so right. We do need longer." No. So we're expecting that, right? The boundaries are the limits of what you will allow inside of those clear expectations, right? You have an hour. You have 5 things to do in that hour. These are what my expectations are. And now we can set some boundaries within that. My boundary is now I'm not going to make a second breakfast if they don't like what's prepared the first time around. Teeth brushing has to happen for 2 minutes. There's no negotiations on that, right? These are things you can enforce. Okay, so we're going to walk it through with our children. We're going to set clear expectations of what that morning looks like. Ideally, you have a meeting with your child. You kind of let them know that this hasn't really been working. I'm sure you feel the stress of it too. We're going to switch things up a little bit. Let them know what to expect before the morning. So here is how I would break it down. You're going to set your clear expectations of how the morning's going to look. You don't need them to approve of this. Okay. You're going to set the expectations. And ideally, you get some of those grabs for control that they are inevitably going to do out of the way at night. You give them options to choose from to set the morning up for success, saying something like, these are your 2 favorite breakfast options. Which would you like on the table when you come out of bed? right? They choose it the night before. Maybe every night for a while, they choose their breakfast the night before. Maybe they choose their clothes the night before so that you don't have to go through multiple wardrobe changes. Maybe you have the shoes, everybody helps set the shoes right by the door. Maybe you come up with a game on how we're going to get to the car. Try to get their, pockets of control into this, but the clear limit and the clear expectation is set. Then you're going to remind yourself that this is not personal, it's developmental, and I'm going to expect pushback. I'm going to expect that. So when the pushback comes, you don't take the bait. You're sitting there going, I knew this was going to come, and I'm actually excited to practice my skills, right? So you hold on to a grounding tool. A grounding tool is something that feels good for you in a way that allows you to shake the stuck emotions in your body loose. Whether that means you run your hands under cold water in the kitchen while the chaos is happening and you kind of bring yourself back into your body. You're taking deep breaths. You excuse yourself for a second to quote unquote go to the bathroom and you scream into a pillow. Whatever it is that allows you to keep your mouth shut, allows you to not take the power struggle bait, allows you to not take the developmentally appropriate boundary pushing personal. And you can just continue to hold that boundary, hold that line. So the pushback comes, you ground yourself in the moment, you don't take the bait, then you stay the course with what was discussed the night before. If they give you pushback, no problem. I'm not taking that bait, right? Now we get to practice the skill of offering them two choices, right? You know what? It's totally okay. You know your body best. And right now, your body says that you don't want pancakes, that you want eggs. Unfortunately, the boundary, I'm not going to be making a second breakfast like we discussed last night. So you have two choices. You can either eat your breakfast while it's nice and warm here and ready for you, or we can package it up and we can send it with you to school. You only know what works best for you. Have you taken the bait? Not at all. Have you engaged in the energetic back and forth? Nope. You have lovingly held this perfect little boundary that you have created. I'm not making a second breakfast. Here are your two choices around this breakfast that I have already made. And you will notice that they will refuse for a while and then they will come to quote unquote their own conclusion and they make the choice to eat the breakfast. This might take a week, this might take 2 weeks, but it could take one day. But what you are saying is, I'm not allowing the emotional charge to derail the expectations, and I am not letting you cross that limit that I have set for myself. I will not make a second breakfast. I am not allowing you to cross that boundary. I am going to hold firm because that is something that I can enforce. Okay. So then if they choose to not eat the breakfast, just package that thing up, put it right in their backpack, good to go. You're still offering them food. You're still doing everything right in the fact that you're not, leaving your child hungry at school. They still have that option right there available to them. This is where we need to say they are trying so hard to control this moment. I'm not going to take the bait, right? I'm still lovingly in control of this expectation. Okay. The alarm bells are going to be firing through your body. They are going to be sending out all of these signals saying control, shift, abort, all of these things. And you need to hold on to something, whether it's that grounding tool, whether it's a mantra, whether you go into the bedroom and scream into a pillow, then come back and hold that boundary. And if it's helpful, use a visual timer for your children. So maybe you want to designate 5 minutes to breakfast. You want to designate 10 minutes to getting dressed. So you set that visual timer for them. You let them know that they have this amount of time to complete it at the 2 minute mark. If they aren't able to do it, you're going to come in and you're going to help them, right? So that could also be an option. And again, expect the pushback. Expect that they are actually going to push back against every time boundary. How can you scaffold that? That works for you and your family, setting clear expectations, having them get some of their control desires out by being a part of the solution. You know it's a tricky problem. Ask them for their help. Let them know you really need them to figure this out with you because you're just not coming up with the best ideas. And we want to make sure that it works really well for them too. When they do push back, you offer them two choices, right? You give them the opportunity to do the right thing independently on their own. If they cannot do that, you're not then trying to figure out in the moment another thing to do to get them to the outcome that you want. No, you're just coming in and holding that boundary and supporting them. So, option one is them doing it independently and showing their stuff. Option two is you coming in to support them in not a shaming way, in a just like, this is what it is. I'm helping you. I'm going to get you to the car. I'm going to package up your lunch. I'm going to help you get dressed, whatever it is. You hold that boundary and then you try your hardest to hold on to those grounding tools and not give in to the energetic exchange. I know it is so hard. I know because they have this amazing ability to find all the cracks and holes in our armor, and they get to show us the parts inside of us that are still deeply wounded and need a little bit more support. That's a whole other podcast topic. But this is an opportunity for you to find something that works for you to soothe your body in the moment, to just remind yourself this isn't a personal attack. This is developmentally appropriate. This is what my child should be doing. So I am going to protect myself by meditating in the morning before my kids wake up, by having calming music playing in the background while we're making breakfast, by having certain things around the house that remind me of my mission to stay calm, whether it's a visual cue of like a stop sign where you're like, I need to pause when I'm feeling flooded, right? Whether it's ice in your hand to cool yourself down, whether it's pushing up against the countertop as they're having this power struggle and asking you to engage in it, and you're just pushing up against that countertop, but you are not saying a thing. Or you're running into that bathroom because you have to go to the bathroom so bad, and instead you scream into a pillow. Whatever it is that helps you get through those moments so that you can come back into your body and say, I'm actually the one who is supporting this process along. I don't need my child's buy-in to make me know that I'm doing a good job. I hope that helped, and I look forward to answering more of your questions. So don't be shy, submit them, and if you want to one-on-one back and forth go over a specific scenario in your household, please just fill out the submission form in the show notes and we'll be on our way. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to the Response Able Parenting Podcast. If you like what you heard, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. If you know someone who would benefit from this podcast, I'd be honored if you'd share this episode with them. Until next time, know that you are enough, you are capable, you've made it through all of your hardest days, and we will keep growing on this parenting journey together. This podcast was produced by Kim Kelty and myself, Becky Jennings, and edited by the Kelty Method, Branding and Podcasting.